Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the internet. My name is Andrew Klager, and today we are going to be talking about writing. Specifically, we are going to be talking about how to turn your theme into a thesis statement. So, in our last video, we were discussing Lilo and Stitch, and we had walked away with a very rough theme about what the whole point of the movie was. Now, we're going to turn that theme into a thesis statement. So, we begin with the question, what even is a thesis statement? So, a thesis, and in this case for thematical analysis, is a statement of your position on any particular topic. In this case, we ask the question, is family a biological or a social construct? And so, we are going to be answering that question with a declaration of our opinion called a thesis statement. And so, we found that a family is something that you actually create, not something that you were born with, as what we came away with in our last video. And so, the point is, do you agree or disagree with that statement? Now, we're going to operate under the presumption that you do agree with it for the sake of this video. I mean, if you disagree with it, feel free to write up your own research paper explaining why, and feel free to submit that at any time. So, the thesis statement is you firmly stating your stance on this issue. In this case, you agree for the sake of the video. So now we get into what a thesis statement even looks like. Now, look here is kind of an iffy way of putting it because there's no standard look for a thesis statement. But typically, here are some characteristics on what they might look like. So, a thesis statement is typically one or two sentences. Now please try to keep it about one sentence. Very rarely do I see two sentences, but I have seen several instances in which people have accepted them. I will try to limit that to just one if I were you. Now, they also are very concise, cutting out the unneeded and vague words such as things and stuff by trying to be more specific about what sorts of things, what kinds of stuff, what specifically are you talking about? And also, they're using academic writing, which will be discussed in another video later on. So this is third person, present tense, and assumes that the reader knows the work that you're analyzing. So you don't have to summarize the entirety of Lilo and Stitch, or the entirety of To Kill a Mockingbird, or etc. Just assume that they know what happens. So, also, third person present tense, you don't say Lilo walked to the beach. You would say as Lilo walks to the beach, etc., etc. Now, also, it is considered the last sentence usually of your introductory paragraph. That's typically where the placement is. It's just kind of standard conventions. It kind of sums up the introduction as the last thing that you want your audience to look at right before you delve into the meat of your paper. And so, again, it states your beliefs and why you believe it with the evidence from the work that you're analyzing. So, how do we turn a theme into a thesis? This is something that many people, including myself, have had problems with. So let's begin by writing out our thesis, or our theme that we established from the previous video. So we had said, Disney believes that family is something that you create, not something that you were born with. Now, first things first, who cares what Disney thinks? We are going to just talk about what you think. So we will cut out the whole Disney believes that. So never put the author believes something, so-and-so believes something. We're just going to cut that out and begin with family is something that you create, not something that you were born with. Now, also, since we're talking about academic writing, and we had said on the previous slide that we're going to use third-person language, we can't have words like you. So, again, we can be at least a little more vague but specific in this particular case because people is general, the word people is general enough to cover everyone, but vague enough that we're not talking specifically about Lilo, specifically about any of the characters, because this applies to everybody. And also, we are going to try to remove some of what is called passive language. So we're going to avoid saying things like family is something people create, and instead say something like people create social families, not just biological families. And so we need to add some clarification here. So people create families how? And not just biological families. And then explain so what? So why should the reader care? Because remember, this is in your introduction paragraph, and you want the reader to, well, keep reading. So we will further answer these questions within our thesis statement at the end of our introductory paragraph by saying that people create families by supporting and changing for one another, which we had seen Lilo do for Stitch. Stitch do for Lilo. And sometimes the families that people choose prove more powerful than the families that fate gives them. So in this case, Stitch doesn't have a family, so the family that he chooses to have, that he chooses to be with and associate with, is more powerful than the family that fate gives them, which essentially is nobody. So we need to specify families, because we are distinguishing between two types of families, social families and biological families, and that is something that your reader needs to know. So we have a pretty solid thesis statement, and it reads as such. People create social families by supporting and changing for one another, and sometimes the social families that people choose to create proves more powerful than the biological families that the fate gives them. Now here is a okay thesis statement. Again, you will always look at your thesis statement and think, this could be better, this could be better. Some of the best writers do that. But if you recall from the grammar video, we were discussing sentence variety. And here we have a compound sentence that really is able to give us as much information as we need for the audience to follow the rest of our paper. And so this is how we turn a theme into a thesis. So with that in mind, please make sure you go over the homework and practice creating your own thesis statements that you have been working on for the past couple weeks. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, keep on thinking. See you in the next video.